And let's talk about the Sea King layout. What was the cockpit like? Was there a standard crew, or was it different every time, depending on the mission you flew?
Yeah, I started off on the ASW version, so that's the Sea King Mark V, and as I say, that crew would be two pilots, and they would normally be crewed up. So if you were a new person in the front line, you'd be crewed up with a more experienced captain of the aircraft, if you like, and then you'd have an observer down the back who'd operate the radar, and then the air crewman who'd operate the sonar, either the active sonar, I think it was called the which came out the bottom of the helicopter, the 915, if I remember correctly, and or the passive ones, which they would chuck out to sort of lay a barrier to allow us to sort of hunt down the submarines. So that would be a standard fit for a Sea King Mark V. But I did fly the Sea King Mark IV, which is the sort of the jungly version. And so after a couple of tours, the Mark V, I went and flew the Mark IV, which is based at a place called Royal Naval Air Station Portland, which is near Weymouth. It doesn't exist anymore; it's closed down. But that was a very different aircraft. I mean, it's the same aircraft in terms of Sea King, but it was flying very differently. And again, normally you would just fly that single pilot, and the role I flew it in was either search and rescue or maritime counter-terrorism (MCT). And so you'd normally fly a single pilot. Well, you could fly two pilots, but you're quite happy to fly a single pilot, an air crewman and a diver. So that would be the complement, particularly for search and rescue, on that aircraft. Yeah.
So let's just talk about the Sea King as a whole. Obviously, you flew
Mhm.
two marks there, but what would you say the strengths and weaknesses of the helicopter were?
I think the strengths were it's a powerhouse. I mean, you had a lot of power to do it. The Sea King Mark V could carry a lot of equipment. You carry sort of depth charges, and you could fight the role. The Sea King Mark IV, as an example, had plenty of excess power, so you could carry lots of troops, and that's what it's designed to do: carry soldiers and marines. And again, that was quite an agile aircraft to fly as well. So I think that would be its strength. It was very reliable as well, actually, and it was a nice aircraft to fly from a pilot perspective. I mean, really nice. It was a delight to fly, actually. I suppose the weakness, what would be the weakness be? I mean, it's difficult to say what the weakness is. I think for the Mark V, the weakness would be its position at the radar. So you always have a blind spot. So the observer would always ask you to turn heading so they could see ahead. So that's changed actually in the new helicopters, the Merlin. That's changed. They've rectified that problem, but that was a bit of a problem, the blind spot. So I'd say that would be a weakness.